It really strikes me that how much for me on my side, I want to get into the deep technical pieces about like, oh, here's how you model incrementality and challenges of measuring it. But what I keep forgetting is, look, people don't know things like your creative matters and what that even means. So I think one cool thing about this sort of meeting of minds is we can talk about the practical implementation of how you can use this today and then provide some expert background on this is why it works. I think it will give a different perspective on a new way of thinking of making your social media ads work when you think of it from the platform perspective. Because I think a lot of other angles have been played out in terms of like, hey, you need to think of your audience, hey, you need to think about your objective. Well, why does Facebook want you to succeed?
I like it. Should we do a quick intro?
Yeah, definitely.
Go
Um,
for it.
Well, hey, I'm Andrew. I'm Andrew Yates. I'm the CEO and founder of Promoted AI. We sort your search for marketplaces and we promote the best listings at the top to increase revenue. Um, we are all ad tech guys. And the way this all works is we run everything like an ad, even if they're not an ad. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that even means because there's something about the word ads that just causes people to shut down and stop thinking. They see ads like banner ad, they're done listening. I'm hoping that we can get into some more details today to talk about. No, wait, look, there's your $1 trillion businesses. There's stuff happening here that you should think about more deeply and use it to your own advantage.
Cool. And who is Promoted AI for? Like, who's your ideal client?
Marketplaces, mobile marketplaces, ideally in the United States, ideally big enough where optimization matters. So Series B plus, we go after the very best marketplaces. We love working with the great engineering teams. Um, we're happy to work with everybody, but we find that it's when they have a really fantastic foundation that we're able to add the most value.
Cool. And I'm Daniel Diaz, founder of Social Bulldog. I think we do things that are a little bit simpler. We're a performance marketing agency. Both of us ex-Facebookers, actually. That's how we know each other. So I took my time on the auction team and brought it over to the agency world to hopefully run ads better than most people out there.
Well, let's talk about ads. Let's talk about buying ads on Facebook and Google. It really strikes me that how much for me on my side, I want to get into the deep technical pieces about like, oh, here's how you model incrementality and challenges of measuring it. But what I keep forgetting is, look, people don't know things like your creative matters and what that even means. So I think one cool thing about this sort of meeting of minds is we can talk about the practical implementation of how you can use this today and then provide some expert background on this is why it works. I think it will give a different perspective on a new way of thinking of making your social media ads work when you think of it from the platform perspective. Because I think a lot of other angles have been played out in terms of like, hey, you need to think of your audience, hey, you need to think about your objective. Well, why does Facebook want you to succeed?
So something that's really cool about all of you guys, from my understanding at least on your end, is that you all essentially built these algorithms at Facebook, at Google, at Amazon. And you spoke about creative, which is super interesting because I used to like be a non-believer on creative when I worked at Facebook. And obviously since leaving, it does have its value. I think it's still overvalued to an extent. But I'd love to
Yeah.
hear what you think about creative when it comes to ad buying, considering you're one of the people that wrote this algorithm, and I simply learned how to use it, and I
Yeah.
didn't really value creative much. But you just mentioned it, so what do you think about that? How do you think about it?
Think about it from the computer's perspective. Computer has no idea what your creative is. Has no idea. What it does know is do people engage with your creative? Loves engagement. So creatives are important to the extent that people interact with your media and use it. And then ideally they complete the objective. So for example, if you're selling something and you put up a bikini picture, everyone loves to click on bikini pictures. Um, well, sure, maybe you're getting a lot of click traffic, but are they completing your objective? And by the way, we're starting to get into a little bit of the dark arts of like how social media ads work, or just social media in general, and like clickbait. Um, Creative is a necessary interface with reality to get the computer to do what you want it to do, and it's really the only one that you have. So you need to do it right, but you also have to realize that changing the color of a font or moving things around slightly probably isn't going to be the thing that makes or breaks your campaign.
So this is kind of cool because this is like Friday afternoon and this is completely unscripted. Um, I want to ask you a question. Um, Negative comments on ads, not X outs, just negative comments on ads. Obviously, I'm thinking of it as Facebook, but I'm pretty sure they all work in a similar fashion. Are negative comments on ads still a positive because it's technically engagement on said ad? The algorithm's not scanning for, it's not trying to understand said comments, is
Yeah.
it?
No. Well, you try to make it right. Let me tell you about a thing called 2016. If you may remember, um, there was a presidential election that year, and there was a lot of controversy, and people want to believe that there's all sorts of ideas and schemes. Think of it more simply like, look, you know what's easy? Make the numbers go up. You know what gets you promoted internally and gets like everyone excited? Engagement. Engagement is up. You know what makes people not excited? Oh, we're gonna like have someone read every single comment. Like we're gonna hire people to do that. That's expensive and also doesn't make the numbers go up.
So,
So yeah, more on it's a complicated answer because the first answer is in general, more is better. You want more, always more. The second answer is platforms know this. They're not dumb. And they're trying to make it so that it's the right type of content. But sometimes they're not always up to speed with what the right type of content is. And sometimes it's very difficult to figure out what's good versus what's not good.
from a business perspective, that's really challenging. Often with my clients, we'll have a polarizing ad, and it's so hard to walk that line of controversial and negative to the brand versus just crushing it. Because to your point, the platform is very hard at it's not very good at distinguishing those two, and sometimes they just work. Um, Super interesting.
Yeah. Well, again, think of it from the platform perspective. Let's say you're, I'm going to just pick a customer out there. Like, let's say, well, HipCamp's a customer of ours, right? Um, they want people to check out. They want people to book listings that they love, and they have a limited number of engineers, and they have a limited amount of signal, and they want the very best possible experience. Um, but how do you measure the very best possible experience? So imagine that you have a marketplace or you have a social media app. How do you come up with some general metrics of, do people like this? Well, did they engage with the thing, and did they come back? And then forever for the years afterwards, it's like, well, what if they engage with it too much, but they actually didn't like what they got? So these are some challenges if you were running the marketplace of like drop shippers. I think this is a common challenge for some people who are running campaigns or running ads. It's really engaging. People are buying. All the signals are there, but weeks later, people are dissatisfied with what they got, right? And that's the sort of whack-a-mole you're always dealing with. So to your point, like, is it good or is it bad? Um, there's the perspective of you who is trying to run your campaign, and then there's the perspective of the platform, and then how holistic is the perspective of the platform? Is it just your experience today while you're looking at this creative? Is it your experience of like, did you complete the checkout conversion? And or is it like, did you go do the thing? It came to your house like weeks later. You received it. You loved it. You inherited it. Your children inherit the thing, right? Like, how many years into the future are you going to really evaluate, is this good or not? And for like marketplaces where it's an experience based, like let's say HipCamp, it's really tough sometimes to model that whole thing out. And so um, it's tough for social media as well. So what I challenge people to do is stop trying to figure out how to outsmart Facebook Um, First of all, other people have been trying to outsmart Facebook much more effectively than you have for years and years. And Facebook has literally billions of dollars to try and tamp that down. So uh, come up with a better strategy. But the other side is try to focus on having a great product and communicate what that great product is and think of it from multiple different perspectives. The first impression, the first like complete the transaction, and then later following on, did they come back? And stop thinking about so much how is a social media platform going to be able to fully represent that entire loop.
So I think this is kind of the reason that we decided to have this chat was kind of on this premise, which is a really hard pill to swallow. But what you're essentially saying is, if you're not getting the results you want, sure, you can hire an agency like us that will probably do better than what you're doing. Sure, you can work on creative, but at some point, there'll be some losers. You're not going to hit the targets that you need to hit to make Facebook or Google, any of these platforms, grow you efficiently. And it's most likely your product that's the issue here. How do you, I mean, I haven't really figured this out. How do you go about telling someone that in a way that is constructive? Or, yeah, how do you think about that? Because I literally struggle with this all the time.
Like me. Yeah, you keep people like me away from the big sales talks. I mean, that's part of it. You separate engineering from sales. That's
because this is kind of what we spoke about, right? There's this kind of concept, or maybe it's not a concept. Maybe it's kind of like a recurring theme that I hear from a lot of founders, which is this, and I think they have to think this way, right? As a founder, you have to this belief that their product is the best thing out there, and it's not their product that's the issue. It's the platform or the person managing the ads, be it in-house, agency, whatever that means. There's something that there's a silver bullet out there somewhere that will make them blow up. What would you say to someone that's struggling on Facebook like that and has been struggling for a while, or Google or Pinterest, whatever that platform may be?
Well, it's so cliche to say there's no silver bullet. Kind of set that one up.
I mean, I guess.
And the sad news is sometimes there is a silver bullet. Like, look, occasionally something blows up, and everyone's chasing that dragon. All right, like I was listening to a podcast. Was it Replay All or something like that? It was Adrian's Kickback or something like this. Like everyone wants to capture the magic of somehow some teenager's birthday party on the beach blew up into this multi-day party all around California, all around like the world, and people are like, wow, how do I get millions of people to buy something that barely exists for free? Because it happens occasionally. It does. I strongly advise don't build a repeatable business plan around having this happen to you. So I'd say I'd start with that. But part of that is the maturity of realizing that, look, it does happen sometimes. I'm not going to say it's impossible. Occasionally, just stuff gets picked up, and you don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a client when I was still at Facebook, where I saw that creative be the silver bullet. It was wild. And a creative overnight, like 30x them, and it was the first time I'd seen it, and probably the only time I've seen it to that scale. But to your point, don't build a business off that expected virality, because it's likely not going to happen.